Good?
We are.
Okay. All right. Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Our regular city council meeting. We have everybody here. We'll start our meeting with a prayer of thought offered by Councilor Gosser. After the thought, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll go to that point.
Dear Father, we'd like to ask you at this time, please be with us during this council meeting. Help us look at the issues, make wise and good decisions, so we can help this wonderful city. Dear Father, we'd like to please have you help us with the water situation. With whatever help you can give us would be great. Please be with us, the city, keep everybody safe. And we say all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody visiting, if you'll sign in, I think there's a sign-in sheet somewhere, just so we know who's here. We will approve, or if we, I guess, want to approve, consent agenda minutes from March 22nd and also the March 24th.
So, yeah, so anywhere Kaylee Spillman's name is, we need an A between the K and the Y. It's K-A-Y. K-A-Y-L-E-A, and then capital L-E-A. So it's close, we just need to add that A in. Sure. And so there's a couple places where her name is on there, so we can just fix that. And under reports number 3, about pickleball, I wasn't asking if funding could be used, I was asking if we could keep the volleyball courts and do pickleball. Because we've already got the volleyball courts there, so. That was the question that people have asked me, is if we could have both at that location, and David explained that.
So volleyball and the pickleball at both at the same location.
Sand volleyball and pickleball.
Okay.
And he explained that because we have volleyball, sand volleyball
In
at
other
the other
locations.
park, that's why we're not doing both.
Okay.
Any other corrections or adjustments we need to make there? Okay, I'll take a motion.
And are we also approving the minutes? Are you doing that separate for the minutes for the special meeting?
Yeah, we can do both, just the 22nd and 24th. We'll go through it here together.
Motion accepted, from March 22nd, 2022, and from March 24th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's a motion and a second, Councilmember Nelson and Perkins, all in favor?
Aye.
That is everyone. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Does anybody have any? I don't think so. And just, I mean, with the conflicts of interest, you can declare a conflict of interest and still vote on things. I mean, a lot of it's just, I could have this. We haven't really had many moves for that, but in the future, that's what it's there for, I guess. Public comment or public input. So this is the time where if anybody here in the public wants to address council, you can do so. If you just come to the stand and tell us your name and yeah, for items not listed on the agenda, give it 3 minutes or so.
All right, good evening. My name is Chris Ewald. Sit at your back. I was on my commercial pilot, a certified flight instructor, an aircraft mechanic, an authorized inspector of aircraft, also regional manager of Guardian Flight, a small business owner here in town, also an aircraft owner, and a hangar tenant here at Fleming as well. So I just like, I know it's not on the agenda tonight, I just want to discuss in front of you just the action items that David shared about some of the propositions for the airport. First item was the hail damage repairs to the hangars. I think that's great, using the insurance money to take care of the roofs and the gutters. I'm in full support of that. Hangar rates, I think a small rate increase is appropriate. However, I think tripling the rates is inappropriate. I've done some research on comparable rates, and I'd be happy to share those with any of you that would like to see those, that I don't feel like the $300 a month is appropriate. I think there's better ways. There's also an airport compliance manual. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that. This is not the whole thing. It's a 506-page document. This is just the first page. There's a whole section on there regarding airport fees and charges. I think whatever the council decides to do, they need to be sure that they're in compliance with that, and that the rates are fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory. Also, next point was tie down rates. I think this is a way to generate a small amount of revenue, but it's also a way to make our airport very unattractive to people, to not just the local tenants, but to outsiders as well. Again, I think there's better ways to approach that. Parking rates and passes. Again, I think that's a good way to make our airport unattractive, and that's something that I think would be very hard to enforce. Parking fines was the next point. This I'm in strong agreement with. We've had a few incidents down at the airport where parking fines might have helped deter people from parking in inappropriate areas. I think this would be a great thing to implement here. And city ordinances regarding the airport, again, I'm in full support of that. I don't believe there's anything in place currently, and I think something should be in place. A lot of cities do have airport ordinances, and I think that's a great thing. I'm in support of that. Regarding all of those things, I think there's more to it than just saying, let's implement some of these charges. Let's get some things going. I think if we want to generate revenue, I think there's smart ways to do it. Ways that we can generate much more revenue than just tie down fees or increase hangar rates. I think also we really need to think about the airport compliance aspect of it. There's a lot to this manual, and if you're not familiar with it, you can Google it, look it up. There's a lot to it. So whatever we do, we need to make sure that we're in compliance with that. There's several items I can think of off the top of my head where we are not operating in compliance. It would be great to get in compliance, I think. That also helps with future things like grants and other federal money, which that as many of you know, that's a huge resource for small airports, is federal grant money. Also, I would like to find a way to promote growth at the airport and find solutions for our hangar problems. That's probably one of the biggest problems that we have at the airport is our shortage of hangars. I think there's some good solutions to that, and I'd be happy to share when we have time to share my input on that. Also, we need to find a way to make our airport more attractive to everybody, not just the locals, but the outside as well. If we do that, I think we can continue to grow. General aviation as a whole has grown 17% in the last year. That's pretty significant. It's not showing any sign of slowing down. I think we can take advantage of that. My recommendation is before deciding on any of these things, to get the input of experts. At one point, we had an airport advisory board. I think we only met once. Reactivate an airport advisory board. Get input from, like I said, from experts, people that have been in aviation their whole life, people that are very knowledgeable about it, people that are knowledgeable about the airport compliance manual. And I think that with input from that, the city can make some really smart decisions that would help to grow the aviation community here, strengthen the airport, and potentially generate a significant amount of revenue. I think with the airport as an ally, I see a really promising future. We've already done tremendous things down there, grown the airport from a small operation that was really at high risk of being shut down to something now that has, I think, $11.1 million of economic activity. You guys probably all saw that report. So it's pretty huge what we've accomplished, and I think we can accomplish more. And I'm willing to volunteer my time to help with that. So put my years of expertise to good use, and like I said, I'm willing to volunteer that, and thank you for your time. I'll see you again at the next meeting.
Thanks, thank you.
Will you leave your data with him so that he can get it to us, or will you?
We've already been talking.
Oh, okay.
I invited Chris and other hangar attendants to either provide email feedback
Okay.
or to come speak to the council. So,
Yeah.
and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my reports as
So
well.
you're gonna come back when we have this on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Kevin.
Because I have some questions, but if you're gonna, I was gonna ask the mayor if I could ask them, but if you're gonna come back, then because I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on some of the areas, but if you're gonna come back, I'll save it up to one, we can have a discussion.
Okay, I would have the answer tonight or save it for the next meeting.
Since it's not on the agenda.
Since it's on the agenda,
Yeah, and I think that when we have it on the agenda, it'll be good to have a good discussion about it.
You bet.
but I like that you came and presented, here, because it gives us a chance to think about it when as it does go onto the agenda, so that was really, smart, and thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I think we have Chris's email if anyone wants to email Chris or anything. I think that wants.
I specifically want also the rates that you've researched.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
He's included those and I'll be providing that, and that's going to be part of my report tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. So,
Perfect. Anybody else want to address the council tonight? Good. Okay, we will keep on moving. First, our reports. I don't know if I really have much to report. We had the art contest and that turned out good. There was lots of good feedback from the school on doing that and helping and things.
That
So
was fun.
it was a good little thing,
Voting on those.
yeah. I'll be gone next week to the league's conference. So the ULCT conference is next week. I got nothing else to report. Does council have anything?
Nope. It is the Republican caucus on Thursday in Monticello.
I will be
And one is the county delegate,
Thursday.
Thursday,
And then the
state caucus.
Easter thing is on Saturday, that was the color fest at the school. Friday, it's Friday, not Saturday. But yeah, Friday, I think it's Friday at 9 is what I know, so. Okay,
Is the Democrat party of the caucus? Is that okay? I don't know. They do will
they
stay.
have in the past, yeah. Yeah, I just don't know what it is. Haven't seen anything on that. City manager, David Johnson.
Okay, just a few quick things. Actually, the first item was to tell you, part of the reason why I didn't bring the airport discussion to you today is I've had good thorough discussions with Chris, had good thorough discussions with our FBO. I've already spoken with a half a dozen other type small airports, some of which Chris has provided me, and just been trying to get good collective discussion. I have seen, you know, a variety. I kind of want to bring the whole perspective to you with some thoughts on recommendation, but leave it kind of almost a little more open and kind of get more direction from you, because there's some airports where maybe they do charge only $100 for their hangars, but they're charging fees elsewhere that we're not charging, and vice versa. And so, and I've had some good discussions, and I think some great ideas have been brought forth by Chris, from other tenants, from our FBO. I just want to take the time, and I too will be gone next week during at the league and city managers conference. They actually do it at the same time, so we'll be gone at one time. But my hope is to get a little more data this week, put it together before I leave for my conference, and have it ready for the next council meeting is what I'm hoping for.
So as a city, we're working towards with our capital improvement plan, or I don't know what we call it, but, a depreciation schedule. Are we doing the same thing for the airport? Have we included that in that? Because that needs to be part of the discussion of like, why we want to charge fees is because we need to replace this and we need to do this and we need to do that.
Absolutely. So I've asked every department this year to provide us essentially the next 5 years and 10 years,
Okay.
what kind of things are needed replacement. And Kim and I have been working on some great stuff regarding capital. Because we've not necessarily done that. And that does not exist currently for the airport, which is kind of why it's in the situation that it's in, why there hasn't been maintenance. It's almost chicken and the egg, like, well, the rent is cheap because the disrepair that it's in, but we can't make improvements if the rent remains at the same. So it's trying to figure out, well, how do we do that? And there's other ideas that have been brought forth. So I hope to have a good discussion about it and kind of see what direction the council would like to go. I wanted to let the council know, I told you with regards to the NTUA agreement regarding the deep well and Westwater, and the state lieutenant governor had originally talked about funding the whole project. And that was kind of our position. It's like, well, if you bring the funding, we can work out a partnership. But the problem is they didn't get all the funding. And since last fall, I've been asking for an MOU to specifically spell out what the parties agreed to, because back then I also wanted to identify in the MOU if they didn't get the funding, what our position was, if that makes sense. Well, they finally got us an MOU. I've been having staff review first and our attorney. Just this week got feedback from staff, a little bit from the attorney. I want a little more clarification from the attorney. And then once we get a little more feedback on that, we'll give it to the council to look. But essentially right now, what we're not liking about the MOU is that it's saying, okay, well, we didn't get all the funding. We got 1.6 million that we'll give to the city, which would go towards the well and infrastructure and others. But then they want us to continue to pursue our previous efforts to get like that USDA grant that I was pursuing before all this. So that's just some discussion to be had, because it's a little frustrating on the funding side. But I want that MOU for us to give feedback first before we bring it to the council. I didn't want to give you the first draft and have you guys be frustrated by it, because I know us as staff were frustrated by it, if that makes sense. And so we'll hopefully be bringing that back to you, or we should be bringing it back to you at least for discussion on the 26th. They were hoping to get things moving forward by the 30th of April. I told the lieutenant governor, right now the council in general has been in support of it, but that's on the premise that the funding was there and those steps. So I said, I'm going to take it to the council, but I can't promise that it'll be approved or the MOU will be approved by April 30th. So we'll bring something to you on the 26th.
I was gonna ask that, no, maybe on the 26th.
Yeah, that's the plan. So they're genuinely staff. I asked for their input and they gave me good, honest input, and I was appreciative of that. There was frustration kind of about not getting that funding and it coming on the city, which from the get-go, we made clear to the lieutenant governor that's what we did not want to occur, and she understands that. So we just need to continue to make that clear. But I also don't want to. I want to be tactful about it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I think there's a tactful way of still standing our ground. So that's where that's at. Lastly, you can read what I've got in the status project update. But one thing that I asked our fire chief to do, and this isn't a project status update, but I meant for the other things. I asked our fire chief to start giving us a quarterly report, and what I'm actually going to start doing, unless the council feels otherwise, I'm actually going to have police and fire every quarter give one report at the same time for police and fire. Right now, police does every month, but I'm just talking to Chief Bradford. He felt a quarterly report would be sufficient unless the council requested more, but I thought it would be good to do police and fire. So that's why you see our fire chief reach out. So that's all I have for right now.
So you're moving police to quarterly as well?
Yes.
So could we still get them with the reports?
Yeah, we could still email it
That
out.
would be easier
I,
for us to
I
do it that
really
way.
appreciate those reports.
And like I
And then
said,
you could
unless
come
you as a
quarterly.
body would like him to still come present.
I want to see his smiling face at every meeting.
Even when he's not presenting.
Councilmember Grover's like, if I gotta sit here, so does JJ.
Right.
He's got to have security.
Well, no, he's still gonna be in attendance at our meetings every month. We're talking that maybe it would be good to just, since we're gonna do fire quarterly report, maybe just do police and fire the same quarter. But
And if there
council
are
wants
things that we
otherwise,
need to discuss, like we'll
Yeah, we can.
discuss and bring in as much as.
yeah, so you won't miss his face too much.
I
If
can't
he
see
doesn't want
him
to
behind
send
the
it from present
podium.
on the report, but whether or not there's a ton of discussion, I do review those reports and I appreciate, I watch a lot of things through them. It tells us a lot about how our city's doing and not doing, or what we're doing well, and what we may not be doing well, and what's affecting us at that point in time. So I like the monthly reports personally, but if, as long as they're in our packet, that would be okay too.
Well, what I was gonna say is what we can do is each month, we can still email you the monthly and then on the quarterly, he can present on the quarterly and then discuss any questions each quarter. Does that work okay for you, council?
That's good.
Is that all right? Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, Kim Palmer, Mrs. Kim Palmer.
Good evening. I'm glad to see you didn't all blow away last night. We had a little breeze. Do you have any questions on the financial? The invoices, payables?
Thank you for giving us the update on the next set of ARPA funds.
Yeah, I
It's
called
nice to see that.
because I expected them in February and then, well, I didn't call, I emailed him and he responded that it will be June or July. I'm anticipating I'll try to do July into the next fiscal year. And then I explained something that we had discussed with staff that we were looking at as an option to use those funds for is that AMI program. And Terry and I both are working on that. He's working with Candelas to get us a quote and an estimate on what it would cost to move to that system. We feel like that's a good use of those dollars. Our current meter reading equipment is 10 years old. We just got it just as I started with the city. I was looking back, oh, we had this, and then it's been 10 years. That's a long time to use a piece of electronic equipment. So as we get more information on that, we'll get that back to you. We'll probably discuss it during the budget discussion,
Which is,
which is the 30th of April at 8:00 a.m.
I'll try to touch down with you after this Saturday,
But
every week until.
I will keep in mind.
It's the budget.
just the work session. Yeah. And just to add what Kim's saying about AMI, I mean, that will be a huge benefit to staff because it'll be radio tower rather than having to drive by every home. Those radios can send into a central location, all the readings in real time. So every hour we can get a reading. So you can even set an alarm. So if something is such where, they see they go through X number of gallons of water and within a 3-hour period, you can see that there's a leak or something. So it's a huge benefit. Sorry for making you so.
Well, I appreciate knowing what the ARPA funds can be used for, because it is a little strict, but it's also, there are other opportunities as well.
And we did
Are you
have
gonna have an approximate cost on what that'll be then, on the April 30th meeting?
I hope.
The AMR.
Terry's saying-
Terry says no.
I haven't heard much back from them, so I would hesitate to promise that.
Okay.
Did we, within the budget, did we budget for this amount within this budget year?
This current budget year,
For the AMI? I
Yeah,
think
for the
the
second,
yes, and
so,
we'll make that adjustment.
okay.
it would roll.
Have all of our, since the metering is on here, and have all of our meters now been switched to reading electronic readers?
All of the electric and about 70% of the natural gas and about 53% of the water. And the majority of what's left is the commercial, and they're a little bit more expensive and a little more time consuming to move. So we're getting there.
Well, I guess this is for another, I just, would it be better to spend our funds on switching all of our residential to, before we switch our metering system?
We're budgeting every year to move a certain amount, so we've been moving them, as you, maybe you remember that we've been moving them about $30,000 worth of them every year to try to get to that point. We should have the majority of our gas changed over before the end of this fiscal year. I think we have 7 meters left for that, you know.
And the idea with AMI is to transition everyone, right?
Yeah,
We would do water, because people still have to drive around and read meters if we, even with the AMR system, if we don't make that change first, to get all the meters electronic.
well, some of those are gonna have to, because of the expense, it'll probably be a year or so before we get everything changed.
Guess we were looking at seeing, I guess what this costs, what this all might cost, and then if there's actually just roll out,
Right.
just kind of into that.
Would we be allowed to use those funds to buy meters too?
I'm not sure that we could purchase meters because it seems like it's just conservation kinds of things
Okay.
in there, but there are other funding sources out there we could look into.
My understanding is that we could buy water meters and then we can buy some electric because those are the meters that collect the signals from the water meters. The way this system works, it works with the current stuff that we've already deployed. And so we couldn't buy gas meters with this money, but we'll be able to put a lot of the main infrastructure in to get the remote readings. And part of that is electric meters.
Who do we use to help us do this ARPA stuff? Like, is there someone specific that we talk to, or?
I've been working with gentleman out of Salt Lake, out of the state's office that handles their ARPA funds. And he
The league
answers all
the league has a specialist for ARPA as well, that they hired specifically for if we have questions about these guys.
Taylor has been really helpful. He responds really quick and
Yeah, I mean, as long as we have somebody in them, and I'm working with each other. Okay, any other questions for Kim? All right, Terry, water report.
you're welcome.
All righty, Mayor and Council, we have the March 2022 water report in your packet. We're well below average on precipitation and even more so on snow water equivalent. At Camp Jackson, where we monitor the snow water equivalent, it's saying that we have 1 inch of water, but 0 inches of snow. So we're just kind of at that awkward point where the technology's freaking out because it's over. But I don't know how you could have water and no snow just sitting there. But anyway, so
It's as hopeful as we are.
yeah.
Have you been to Camp Jackson? Can you get there?
I haven't. I've been only as far as the watershed fence, and that was a couple of weeks ago, I think. And I've been up higher over on the recapture side on my motorcycle on the weekend, and you can get up pretty high. So.
Yeah, you can get there. I hiked up there the other day.
Good to know. I mean, not good, because that means.
Yeah.
That means it's not muddy.
Yeah, so, any questions on the water report specifically? I have one other item. Okay, if the council remembers, we had the hard drive failure up there at the water treatment plant, and the computer went down, and, you know, kind of as I explained, it's not the main PLC that controls the plant. It's the computer that monitors the plant and gives us a one-stop shop to make settings changes and everything. But if it goes down, the plant still continues to run. And anyway, we lost that computer. We weren't able to record data. So David and I have been on a fun learning experience. Because we lost the data, we couldn't report the data. And we now know that is a violation. And then we also know that if you don't call the state within 10 days from the time you lose the ability to report the data, that's a violation too. So we had a couple of violations, and they've assessed our system, IPS points, they call it. And then after we resolve these issues, which we've already done, they'll remove the points. Some of that has some time that has to pass too, before those are all gone. So we have this nice little letter that we are going to send out to all of our customers, because that also is required.
This letter?
That, yes. And so that's some boilerplate that the state provided us for the most part, and David and I filled out some of the other information like dates and everything in there. So be aware, likely you'll have constituents who ask, what's this? And so David Lyman was monitoring the production of the water up there all the time. The quality of the water never changed. There's never any concern with that. But just the way the state code's written, because we weren't able to report, like when we do our, I call it pressure testing, that's not the right word, where we check the membranes to make sure there's no problem. And another way we check to make sure that no pollutants or something are going through those membranes is by looking at the turbidity. We just didn't record those numbers. Like David was visually checking them, but normally our computer records all that data every 15 minutes. So anyway.
So for public record sake, the violations are regarding reporting, not a violation of contamination.
And so, but anyway, this was in January to February. We're now into April.
Yeah.
That water is long gone.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and so we have a little section in here that tells
So-
our customers what happened and tells them what they should do.
So we have to send this out?
We have to send this. Yes. And we want the transparency. We want our customers to feel comfortable that they're getting quality water and that their health and safety is not at risk.
So how many health and safety concerns are we gonna have people calling in when this letter comes out and it's in the?
Well, more than we would if we didn't send it out, but, and that's fine, we'll address those.
The date distributed at the bottom is incorrect, I'm sure you'll catch that, but 4/25, it just says 21.
Oh, 21, yeah, well, maybe we can catch that. But now we have to,
Now you have
so
it,
thank
yeah.
you.
Now you have it.
Yeah, we'll get that changed before we send it out. We make sure that happens. Perfect. Any other questions on that? We have some more water stuff later down the agenda. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, number 6, Parks and Rec report. David.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Other than the report that you have in front of you, just an item of information. We had a tournament over the weekend for volleyball that brought in 49 outside teams. It ended up being 50 or 65 teams for the tournament, 49 of them, of which were from outside of Langley, which was fantastic. We estimated it was really hard, but between 900 and 1,200 people to town just for the one day.
Wow.
So we did go through and warn all of the little food places in town and any place, so they can be prepared. So,
Next time do 2 days so that's stay overnight.
yeah, that's,
Eat, get
Do
gas.
you wanna watch little kids volleyball for 2 days?
we were lucky to get them here in the first.
That's a lot of teams, that's wonderful.
It is, we had a lot last year with about 30, and it's more than doubled this year. We brought in teams out of Farmington and all over Colorado.
And just a plug to the school district, because we want to tell them.
Oh, yeah, in order to watch the numbers and things, we knew the crowds were gonna be huge. We turned it into 3 different tournaments and 2 separate ones at the wellness center, a morning and an afternoon, and one at the middle school as well. We would have used the high school too, but we decided to plan this thing on prom, so it didn't plan that very good. So that's our own fault, but either way, it was a good weekend. I'd be interested to see how the businesses did on Saturday personally, but anyhow, just a little plug there.
My question was gonna be, could we use the high school and middle school? But
Yeah.
because someone was like, it'd be really nice if we could use other gyms, so we still have to go all day. And I'm like,
Well,
"Oh, it would be nice, but-"
we do have a use
We did.
agreement, we just
Okay.
haven't had that
Well, and
need as
maybe-
much, but with things
There
like
was different
this,
age groups going on, so they just didn't know, which is good.
and if we have things like this in the future, it just helps just for organization and crowds and everything else to be able to use other facilities, which of course they were more than willing because, they use our stuff.
How the ball feels holding up?
Oh, they're still dirty.
dirt all over.
I wish you'd take the dirt back to my field.
I think there's a lot of the dirt's in the front of the building here. But no, actually, I went down, they had some, boys baseball games and girls softball, and, our girls softball coach, pulled me aside and, told me how happy he was with it. He was really pleased with how it turned out. He admitted to me, he said, I was skeptical at first, I'll be honest with you. He said, but the way this has turned out, I couldn't be happier. So it was nice to hear. You know, we hear everything, and so sometimes it's good to hear the positive. It was nice.
On a side note, I was driving south one day and it was just red, solid red. I get to my farm and it ends. Below my farm, it's not red anymore.
It's all the way down to the rock. That was
It's getting close.
so, but
Anyway,
Okay, any
Nets
questions?
are nets. When are the overhead nets? We never get them up, and then we always risk somebody getting hurt during the softball season.
Yeah.
baseball season.
we've been slow to hire summer help this year. So we've been incredibly shorthanded and stretched pretty thin. And so we should have had those up, but we should have them up.
They just hired.
Yeah, we finally got an extra set of hands, and it's still not enough, but we're getting there. It should have been done before the first game. So,
Thank you.
just,
Yeah, I was just kind of a bit when there's softball.
I understand.
Just because they should be there and they're not, if they weren't there at all.
Especially with us having our new ones, you know, we
Yeah.
should have them. So,
Now, have you started hiring for the pool?
we haven't officially hired with the pool. They have to pass a lot of tests before they can officially be hired, but we are starting that process.
You getting?
Oh, the manager,
Do you
is
have
that
a
what you were
manager
asking?
for the pool?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we've hired a manager and assistant, and so we're happy with that. They're gonna be starting to reach out. We've just done that last week, finalized that, and so they're starting to reach out to all the applications. We do have applications coming in for that, thank goodness. We're not having them, people don't want to work a shovel or do anything like that, but they'll go sit and work on the can of pool, I guess, so.
Yeah.
But I know, I understand it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's been hard to hire, so. So yeah, things are moving forward for us, just slowly.
Can we know who they are? Like, is that a thing? Like, who's on the?
Oh, yeah, Hannah Blake, formerly Hannah Nielsen, and her assistant is Alexis James. So both have been former lifeguards, now have kind of moved on and done other things that are coming back to help us out.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Anything else?
Mayor, I forgot to remind my husband about the meeting, because he's gonna come talk about this Parks and Rec and say thank you. Would you mind if you stood for a minute?
Yeah, that's fine. Only if he'll speak for
5 minutes.
Do I hear seven? You make me proud, don't I?
I'll take it back about this.
I just wanted to tell the city council and Dave, anybody who had anything to do with the baseball, the softball field is amazing. We appreciate everything you've done. It's a dream. I go to the College World Series every year, and they have banners that say the greatest show on dirt. And we put some on our Facebook, said the greatest dirt on show. I mean, it's an amazing field. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think, give my report, he should have gave it better than.
Didn't
Yeah.
take too much time. No, I think it's a good thing. I think that having things like that is where it needs to be, and the youth are important. and Other things are important as well, but it's good to see it all come together. So. Police report, Chief Bradford.
I'm so excited to share your report with us.
That's over here. So got the report. If you have any questions about what we have in there so far? Got one more thing I want to talk about, but
You caught a sheep.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah, real good.
I love it.
I don't have.
It's not that easy to rope a sheep.
I wish I could, yeah, you should have videoed that or something.
Kind of have this. I would have.
Oh.
No, we did just get our new body cameras in.
Ah,
They are really nice.
wow.
They're super easy to use. When we're done with the ship, just take them home, plug them in the cradle, they charge at the same time as they're uploading the stuff to the evidence on the pilot. Like, go the next day, tag them how we want to do them, save them, whatever we need to do, and it's, we've also been able to use them already to disprove plates. Shut people down on things that aren't true. So, it's been really nice.
I think those are so important. I'm glad.
I was one of the biggest opponents, I guess, when I first started coming out, body camera, they don't want to wear one. I thought it was, but man, and watch over, so it's been more of a protection officer to her. So, be real pro. So, anyway, but we only had one domestic violence issue for the month of March, which I shouldn't do that, but it's down from our average of 7 or 8 months.
Good weather, people getting outside.
That's probably about it.
Although my house is bad because then she wants me to mow the lawn.
Still high, looks like DUI, drugs and possession, all that.
The guys are
Still
working
high.
really hard to get you guys off the streets, and they've all set very high goals to 15 or more DUIs. I can't remember the exact numbers, but when I first started with the city, our goal was 10 DUIs a year for the department, because we just don't see it very many. We're seeing more, which is unfortunate, and you guys are out looking for a lot harder and several a month.
So when it says distribution possession, that's specifically our, like the Blanding police,
Yeah.
or were you in conjunction with the
No,
county?
that's just what
Just in
That's
Blanding?
what the planning department is doing, not counting what the sheriff's office and highway patrol will have to make stuff in town. And get those numbers and they'll go up some.
Seems high, but good to know.
How did they work? What are they finding?
It's true, that's true.
We, just on my end, would you make sure we get the guys an attaboy for us? If I can speak for everybody. I think I've seen them out a lot, they're working hard. That's a good thing.
From keep it busy. Or keep it busy.
The more they do it once a year, right?
Yeah, I really got it. We have one secret thing, because it was a nightmare for me. So, anyway,
Awesome.
And not because you have a daughter, someone's going, right?
no, that's because I worry about all the other daughters.
Any other questions for Chief Bradford?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chief Spill and Fire Report.
Mayor and council, good evening.
Yeah, I don't get to get up and do this very often anymore, like I used to. So I just wanted to kind of give a background. I mean, you all have it in your packet, but some of the council is new since I gave this a year or two ago. But yeah, we have 19 members on the department right now. And I gave some of the I guess, certification stats. So we have 7 that are Utah certified for the Fire 1, 2, and the hazmat. And those are not easy courses to take. They're provided to us by the UVU Fire Rescue Academy. They're really good to us. We call them up and say, hey, we got a training we want to do, and they get their guys, instructors, and ship them all down here. It's all free to us. They stay in motels here for several days. The Fire 1 and 2 course, they're like 4 months of Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday. For like 4 months, it's 160 something hours. And they provide all that. They bring down all their equipment, the trailers, the stuff, building fires in them, and they bring down all their extrication tools to show us what we don't have. So that's a huge thing to be certified to those levels. And we have 7 of them. We got 6 that we haven't started the classes yet,
But we're working with the new guys to train them so that when we do the classes, that it's not throwing them in without any kind of prior knowledge of what they're getting into. And the 8 members that are red card certified, so that, if you guys don't know, that's, if we go fight wildland fire on the federal or state lands, Forest Service, you have to be, so we can be initial attack first responders until the other departments get there, the BLM fire, Forest Service, state, whatever. But once they get there, then they kick us off because we're not certified to fight federal fires. Well, if you get red card certified, you can stay there and fight the fire, or they'll call us out to it and we can tell them, no, we got it, you guys can stay away, and we'll fight the fire and take care of it on those lands. So, and it's not quite as vigorous of courses. It's probably 50, 60 hours of, they do it online now, and then you have to go do all the handwork and testing that way. So we have 3 that are in the middle of getting certified for that. And then just our fire calls from January to now. So.
How are those compared to like last year? I mean, are we about the same?
I think we're up on a couple of the carbon monoxide calls. I felt like we've been bombarded with them. A lot of times I'll just get a phone call from the sheriff's office and say, hey, we got it. Or a citizen will call me and say, hey, my alarm went off last night, so I'll just take the gas sniffer up there and see if we have an issue or not. But I think we're staying about, I feel like we've been busier on some of this stuff.
Any other questions
Hopefully it
for
won't be
Chief
a
Storm?
busy summer. Might be.
It's hard to say because we're not having any new weed growth, so that might be good, but the forest is also really dry. So there might be something up there as well.
Well, I think it's good to have you come here once a quarter. I really do, because sometimes we just move through so many things. Not that we forget about you guys, but sometimes we do. So I'm glad you're coming once a quarter. I think it's important. To hear about you and your staff and what you do, I think it's good.
Or the volunteer firefighting department, and it's good to recognize people stepping up in the community.
Well, the wellness, the well-being study survey that goes out, we had that last time, and safety was a big thing, so it's good to know that we have a good police department, we have a good fire department, we have people that are gonna respond when people need help, so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion items. So Councilmember Bowers and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but a Blanding polling location, we've kind of all talked about this a little while. Kellen, I'm sure you were there when we were talking about it as well, but we just feel like we need to have a polling location in Blanding. We feel like we're the biggest city in the county and one of the only cities in the county that doesn't have a polling location for elections. It's concerning to me, to Councilmember Bowers, and I'll let her speak to it a little bit as well. But we've talked to the county several times, and their response has kind of been that, from what I remember, that we needed a translator. That was the issue, that with the lawsuit, we would have to provide a translator here, and they have to go through certain trainings and things. I've talked to several citizens and people that are willing to help with those kind of things, so that might be part of the solution. I spoke with the Republican Party, and they kind of agreed, but weren't necessarily willing to take it on themselves. And I feel like as a city, it's kind of our responsibility to maybe push it a little bit. But Cheryl, what else would you want to add?
No, so David, did you have discussions with the county about this and they have said no? They
Well-
said absolutely, they will not do
They did. They did create a place for a polling location where you did it this last election.
They put a drop box.
No, they actually had.
it? Had a point?
They
Oh, because it was our, because it was, it
It
wasn't
was
the
a
county
Blanding
election.
City
Because it was,
Council.
yeah, and, but because there wasn't county involved, or it wasn't a county election, we actually had to pay someone outright, because of that, because there was no county involved. So it seems that the county is open to doing it, but I think what their perspective is, then we need to pay our proportional share for requesting that, particularly if there's no county elections involved. It's just.
And I'll just go back, I mean, and I think we address it, but I'll go
Did I
back
answer
to
your
the,
question? Sorry.
sorry. I'll just go back to the, if they're going to say we need to pay, then I really hope that they're charging Monticello, and that they're
Right.
charging Bluff, and that they're charging, I mean, they can't charge Morning Valley, but Laramie shouldn't be the one always to pay, but to not have the service as well. And I'm not saying this to you, I'm just saying this in general, but I think that it's important that, I have been told, I had talked to, at the time it was John David Nilsson, and he's not there anymore, but was told that the reason we couldn't do it is because of the interpreter, and that there was no way around that.
Yeah, that's what we were told originally too. I'm not sure exactly the situation and how they worked it out for this last election. But now, Lyman Duncan is not Duncan Lyman, Lyman Duncan, is now in John David's place. And just having discussions with him, and they're open to it, and they kept the commitment that John David had previously made. But I think there was a little trepidation on that. I mean, similar to us, they have limited staff and 2 or 3 staff members in their office during the election. So what they have said is if we want a polling location, then we need to help provide support staff at the locations, because they, with multiple locations, they obviously don't have enough staff to be in multiple locations. So I think it's something that I think
That
the
including
mayor.
the translators, right?
That's part
I
of.
don't know.
I was just in this message I had from John David
Uh-huh.
back when we went last time, we talked about having to get an elimination certified translator.
Yeah, that was my
Those can
understanding.
be quite expensive and hard to find.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's.
And they
actually-
say it takes a while to become certified, so
Right.
just because you know now doesn't necessarily mean you can be easily certified. And so I think it would be probably Mayor, you and I and council.
How about Shirley?
If you wanted to come,
Wondering about that.
but
Yeah.
maybe we could sit down with their office and just talk about the options, so it's just clear.
That's what I say, I mean, let's get clear guidelines and let's get a commitment, like, we'll provide what we need to, if you'll commit to let us have what other communities get during
Well-
elections.
When did they stop doing it? I remember coming in here and voting.
Yeah, so, and we would have poll workers, and the Republican Party was asking, kind of how this got brought up again, they were asking for, not, I mean, not how it got brought up again, but one thing that kind of led me to it is I asked to volunteer in Blanding to be a poll worker, to come and sit for the polls, and they said we didn't have one.
It started when the county went to all mail order, or mail vote there. But they didn't like that on some locations, so they ended up getting some locations back.
Yeah, so I think that lots of people like the mail-in voting, but I also think that lots of people
Well, I-
then would like to go.
I know that lots of people didn't get their votes in because they thought that there was gonna be a place open on their.
So one of the concerns that they expressed was just because so many people are doing their own voting. I think, I don't know the number, but there was just a very minimal number that actually came into the polling location, whether that was because maybe it needed to be promoted more, I'm not sure
Right.
exactly. But I think that was one of their main concerns, is dedicating a staff member or staff members that have to be paid for the day. Is it worth the cost if only 10 to 20 people come in to vote? And that was kind of the concern.
And I just think it's fair to say that as leadership, if we want every vote to
20
count,
votes
those
are
10
important.
to 22, yeah. I think for us, for me, those are important, whether I mean, who knows what it will help or whatever.
And I think they're
What we
open to
want,
it if we are willing to budget for it, but I think we need to sit down.
Yeah,
and
I
say
think we need
exactly
to
what-
talk to them.
Well, let's ask them the question if they can train a community volunteer to do what their staff is doing. Like, do we have to have?
That's actually what they
Another staff
asked. So how it worked is they said if we get volunteers or our staff members, what I'm about to say is actually kind of backwards a little bit because they will pay that individual, but in truth, we're paying that individual. Does that make sense? Because we're paying the county to assist. So
So that'd be.
we just need to get clarification, in my opinion,
Okay,
what all
let's,
those parameters are.
do we want to send an email to them and ask these questions? Do we want to set up a
No,
meeting?
I would
to-
say, let's just sit down and meet with them, because sometimes the email just gets lost in translation.
Will you set that up?
Yeah, I set it, put a note for myself to set that up. We'll see if I can set something up this week for when we return from our conference.
I can even do like a virtual something next week if we need to.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah, we can figure something out. So. Is that
Yeah,
council?
we definitely need to do it soon because we don't want to have excuses that we're not ready or prepared. Because I do think we disenfranchise our voters. I've seen people I mean, the Bryan City Council was an off-year election. It wasn't going to draw a lot of voters.
Sure.
This is a different year because we're putting in a senator and a congressman and there's a lot of open offices. And so I think, but the year I ran for commission, I sat out here and watched people walk to this building to try and vote and they could not. There was nowhere to vote and they hadn't registered yet. They didn't have their ballot. And so I think it's critical that we make sure that our community members are supported and they feel like there's a location to vote if they don't want to go now on ballot. So.
Let us know when it is and we'll keep everyone posted on that. Our business items. Number one is our water forecast, water availability card code. So we're gonna present that.
Hey, Mayor and Council, most of you are familiar with this process because we've been doing it for a few years. Councilmember Gosser, this is kind of new to you, so let me just give a brief overview. I don't know if you're able to look through that at all in your package.
I did, but-
Perfect. So, a few years back, we had Hanson Allen with us. They have this case insurance guy. He came to them up in Salt Lake from Columbia River Basin, and he had a lot of experience in forecasting and snow melt, runoff, that type of thing. And he helped us. We had a little money left over in a grant project, and we were able to build a model to forecast how much runoff will get off the mountain. And so the model that we use, and we did that with our water rate study. And so it ties directly to that. And then we also look at the current reservoir storage, starting the water year off. So the reservoirs in March 1st, April 1st, right in there. And then with our water rates, I think most of you are familiar with landingwater.com, where our citizens can go and see how our water rates work with respect to the tiers. Green. Dave, could you pull up that flyer that's that report
Yeah, what's the name of the flyer? Do you know the name of the file? It's in the packet.
It is, I just wanted to point on the screen if I could, if that's not too hard. If you can't, you can't. I could probably.
Price of water is
I could probably just point to my paper. Yeah, so this price of water, and I'll talk a little more to this, but we have green, yellow, orange, and then red water rates. And each of those have an allocation or an allotment for residential customers. And so we run that forecast. The forecast recommendation is obviously orange. And that's where we thought we'd be with our lower level storage levels in our reservoirs, and then with the poor snowpack that we had on the mountain this year. And so the recommendation is to move from yellow to an orange scenario for our water users. And we know that is going to present some difficulties for people. It's not awesome. And so Pratt put this flyer together, this price of water. This will go out in the billing mailers if council is okay with that. We also have another similar graphic. I didn't put it in the packet because it was a JPEG, but,
We have an updated one from this one that's in the market, right? You mentioned to,
updated in what way?
That's the newspaper ad.
that's the newspaper.
Well, that's the newspaper ad. Okay, so we'll have an ad in the newspaper. It'll be a 10 by 10. That's much the same as this, just less of the fluff and more of the information. And so on our monthly water allotments, this column here, the color code, that kind of helps the citizens know how much water we're allocating. And that varies based on winter, shoulder, and summer months. We do a bigger allocation in the summer for outdoor watering, a little less on the shoulder months when it's cooler, and then we allocate basically inside water use during the winter months. And so that's pretty normal. So this color code, the next one over on the monthly allotment, you can see we're allocating on a green year 36,000 gallons, and that goes down on an orange year, that'll be 23,000 gallons. And so I think a good way to explain to customers if they ask, well, what are the water restrictions? Well, the restrictions, we're asking you to use 36% less water in total across the board. Yes.
What's the average use right now? Do you know? Do we have that number?
Just about 40, right?
It's just about 40 in the
In a
summer.
month?
In the summer, not
In the
like
summer?
right now, but in the summer, yeah. It's about 40. I mean, that's a tricky number, almost even to generate, but
That's the average per user.
yeah.
That's the.
And you've got apartments and mobile home parks where they use, it's pretty much their summer use is the same as their winter use. And then, of course, you have other customers who use a lot. So if you're looking at this flyer with customers and trying to help them understand what we're showing in these two columns is if you reduce your water usage based on your allocation, your water bill can stay the same. So it's not the city's intent to make more money with the increased water rate. The intent is for people to use less water and the city stays revenue neutral. And, a lot of studies on water use have found that the best way to encourage conservation is pricing. This last column is if you just use 60,000 gallons and didn't care what the water rate was, you could see that your bill would go up significantly, 50% more on an orange year from a green year. And so, hopefully, this will be a tool for us as staff to quickly help folks. The blandingwater.com, is referenced on the bottom. That's the website I think everyone's seen where you can go in and actually play with your bill and kind of see how it changes based on your water usage, based on the tier for the allocation for the year, and then based on usage and based on month, whether it's a summer month or a shoulder month. And, that's another tool customers can use. They can create an account, get on their Express Bill Pay and see what their past usage is. So they're using their own real numbers. And that's pretty helpful.
And I think it'll be alarming for a lot of people too. I've talked water for the last 2 weeks with lots of people. And I sat down with someone and they logged into their thing and they were at 60 during the summer and they had no idea. And they have a small yard, so it was pretty alarming to them, but that's where
Yeah, we pulled some of those and looked at them. I mean, I use at my house on a green year, I use 60,000 gallons. I usually plant a fairly good sized garden and all of that. So, 60,000 is not uncommon. I have more grass than I should. To get the desire to xeriscape, that's kind of hard too. So it's been, I fell into the same trap that many people have. We just feel like growing up in Utah, that's what we do is plant Kentucky bluegrass. And, the state's pushing really hard to change that. For cities bigger than us, it's now the legislature passed some new bills this last legislative session. These larger cities, they're mandated to go in and change zoning landscaping requirements in the different residential zones and reduce the amount of turf grass and everything. We're a class 5 city, so we don't fall under that, but it's something we should look at and consider because we're drier, than a lot of the communities up there on the Wasatch Front. So something we start looking at. Anyway, we haven't necessarily done, resolution or anything when we change this because we've already created the policy. We just have the council, I guess, motion to change from yellow to orange rate in order to conserve water. But the one other thing I would add, by trying to adhere to an orange year this year, if we have another really poor winter next winter, we should be able to stay in that orange area, with the increased size of the Fort Reservoir and everything. That's what we hope to never get in the red. Because, the allocation for summer months, well, for winter is 6,000 for a resident. And in the summer on a red year, it's 8,000. So we're saying, go ahead and water your trees a little bit, but that's it. No garden, no lawn, no nothing. So we don't want to get there. Questions, comments, concerns?
Need water. Can we,
I will say though, it's very nice that we went through all this process to do this and that you did all the work because it's nice to know that we now have a plan rather than trying to figure out a plan now of how we're going to conserve. We have already a plan in place, and I'm glad that we've done that previously, so we know exactly what the next step is when we're at this point. Unfortunately,
Wyoming City, you guys are way ahead of the curve by having stuff like this. When I was up north, the larger cities were just starting to look at doing something like this, and now the state's mandating that cities do things like this. And so Wyoming is obviously always been way ahead of the curve when it comes to water. So this is really, lack of a better term, saving our bacon.
it's a lot of work, but it's a good thing. Otherwise, we'd be talking about how do we conserve water right now.
well, and the biggest question I get is what is the city gonna do to conserve water? Like what restrictions are they gonna have? And policing that is, you just you can't police when people are watering their lawns and so that's, I feel like this is why it was super helpful to have this so that, you pay for what you use and just please don't use it.
When we did the stormwater project, we got that loan from Water Resources and we changed our code, if you remember, to prohibit watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. There's a lot of folks in the water conservation arena who don't always love that rule because, yeah, you lose a little more to evaporation, but it's worse to water at 9 o'clock at night with the wind blowing like it was last night. Nothing hits the ground. So, you could do worse by watering outside of those areas. And sometimes that can be, you have an older person that's living on Social Security and they don't have a sprinkler system, it's pretty hard for them to not water maybe between those hours. And so we don't want to have this heavy-handed, we're not going to take the 90-year-old lady to jail, I hope, JJ. But, yeah.
So I'll make a motion then that we approve going from yellow and unfortunately orange for 2022.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's Councilmember Bowers and Perkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Everyone?
So if anyone asks, we ask that you restrict your water usage by 36%, but we don't police that, we don't set times and hours. You find a personal way to do that.
Yeah, we're not gonna go, you're on the west side of town, you water on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday or something.
I think it would be wise
If
to,
not, your bill's gonna go way up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add. That's the thing you'll add.
well, if we could provide education, like I think that these flyers and things are really good.
Yeah.
And social media is good for some, and there's just not a perfect way to get it out there to everyone. But if we can just be talking about things we can do and how to help.
One thing on social media that really helps, you can like it or share it when you see Pratt put up some of that information. I mean, we put a post up of the fireworks and 3,000 views and everyone was already there. And we put up a post about, hey, conserve water, and it gets 80 views.
We're like, no, give us fireworks.
So,
Literally burn money.
Did you have a question there?
I was just gonna comment that the best way to get people to slow down is out of their pocketbook. So,
Can you do a video of the fireworks with the water thing and then maybe?
Maybe that's.
Maybe start with fireworks and then throw it in the middle.
That's the fireworks show, just kidding.
All right, our second item is the hail damage general contractor selection.
Okay, Mayor and Council, so this took a little while because we've been working with our insurance. When I got here, we actually had the insurance come back out and reassess things and look at additional buildings that were not looked at. Then we looked to see if maybe we could internally contract the various contractors. After a few weeks of looking into that, it was very clear that we just needed to get a general contractor. Long story short, we put it out to bid. We didn't get any bids. I called contractors personally to let them know that we were going to extend it. They applied. We had 2 applications in. The first one, Arrowhead Construction, they're out of Huntington, Utah, Emery County. They provided a full bid. Tri-Hurst didn't provide a full bid. The only thing they left out was the roof on the City Hall. They said they'd be happy to provide us a bid for something, but they were worried that they couldn't find the same material. I asked them to try to provide me with an alternative. I hoped they would have included it in the proposal. I didn't receive an alternative. But the more important thing is before, so tonight you can select which contractor you would like to go with. That's not a problem. But before I bring the contract back to you, right now I have our insurance verifying that they will cover essentially the inflated costs since the time these assessments were made. And they felt pretty confident. The insurance pays us essentially half up front. So if we never do the repairs, that's all they have to pay out. But then if we do the repairs, they pay their remaining costs. So I have them look at each contractor's bid. They said, actually, if you added in what Tri-Hurst left out, the bids are almost 6s. Both parties are concerned about materials, concerned about labor. Arrowhead Construction said they're ready to get on it right away. I assume Tri-Hurst is as well. I myself and staff, we really don't have a preference one way or the other. The only thing to keep in mind is that we didn't receive costs from Tri-Hurst to replace the roof here at City Hall. And with that said, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Did either one provide an estimated time on what it would take to finish?
Not within their proposals, but in my discussions with them, they were looking at, they'd like to be done probably by fall time. I know Tri-Hurst didn't say that, but Arrowhead was talking about that. But again, caveated depending on supplies, exactly. So that's why I think there's some trepidation in giving us an exact timeline. But
What is the roof on this building?
it's like this membrane. To me, it just looks like a thick vinyl, essentially. I don't know how to describe it. So
It's flat.
yeah.
Well, does anybody know what they took off the Head Start building last spring and replaced? Because it looked to me like it was something like that. And it was a company out of Price.
Yeah, I mean, Emory said they didn't see a problem with replacing it. And that's the thing I'm having the insurance look at is I had them give us quotes on exactly, or the bids, give us bids on exactly what's priced out here. But the insurance said, as long as they're not trying to say, oh, the membrane's not available, so let's upgrade you to this. As long as they're trying to do with whatever's available, that's the most apples to apples, they're good with
Membrane's
that.
not available, go shingles or metal or?
I don't know, and that's something we just have to work with them. I think right now, the main point of discussion really is who would you like to go with? And how would you like us to move forward? And then sort of the details of each item and how the replacing it can be worked on as we move forward with the general contract.
I think personally that I would like to say Tri-Hurst and say, get us a number on what you can do the city office for. And if you can't do that, then we'll make a different selection.
Exactly what I was gonna say. What Eric just said. I'd like to go with a local contractor, but we need to know if they come back with a price on the city hall that's double,
I will let you know, I told them prior to the RFP that I needed bids on everything in the proposal so that you can make a decision and move forward. And I spoke to him again,
Who did you speak to?
Joe, and I spoke to him again and asked him if he could get us numbers by tonight, and I hadn't received anything, so that has been requested twice. So,
I would like to reach out to him again because I would prefer to have local contractors do this job if it's within, if the numbers are comparable.
yeah, I don't disagree, but I just communicating that has been requested.
did you give them until next meeting?
That's up to you.
Maybe council?
We've got a year and a half for it.
Yeah. I think the only hesitation, I'm not saying for Trihurst or Arrowhead, actually, both of their hesitations, the longer we wait, and this is the insurance hesitation, the more the costs are still increasing, so. That's why sooner than later.
Because the insurance gave us a deadline. And
No, I mean, we have 3 years to do the work, essentially from the initial claim and everything. 3 years, right? Is that? Anyways, in my discussion with them, that's what they told me from what I read for it, but again, I'd rather get it done sooner than later, because 3 years ago, it's gonna be.
When might we hear back from the insurance on what?
They told me they were gonna try to get me numbers by tonight, but I think for sure by the next meeting. So if you wanna table this till the next meeting, let's do that, and then I'll give Trihurst opportunity to provide us.
like, they're into.
Can we reach out to Trihurst this week and tell them that we need that by then? Just,
We can also make a motion to approve Trihurst if they give us information that comes back at the same price.
I would recommend just tabling it and having them bring it in, but
but yes, we can.
we could do that, but
But
I would.
if you're trying to move faster, we could do that.
My point is that won't move it any faster because I don't want to wait until the 26th. So my advice would be to table it so that we don't put off Arrowhead in case Trihurst doesn't get that to us, if that makes sense.
Let's do that then. I move we table
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Grover and a second by Councilmember Bowers to table the Hell Dynamics general contractor selection. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, number 3, resolution 412-2022-1. We're finally getting out of all the tools.
Just for you. So, Mayor Council, pretty simple. This is an agreement, annual agreement that we have every year so that if fire forestry and state land is putting out a wildfire, needs to dip into our reservoirs, if there's anything to it, that they pay us.
Has anything changed on this?
No, it's identical other than yours.
Are they paying orange water rates?
it. I'm just paying $400 an acre.
Chief, Spillman, I mean, you've obviously seen this. This is something you're good with this.
I can't let it burn.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. Right. Farmers on Mustang, they want to let it burn.
Let it burn. That green juniper pinion needs to burn. It's useless stuff.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 4-12-2022-1, the forestry, fire, and state lands water agreement.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Councilmember Perkins and Councilmember Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I still let it burn.
It's everybody.
Well, you know a fire started.
Yeah, I'm not gonna start, but I'm not gonna call you and tell you where it is, tell it's done some good.
I do not know of a reason for closed session.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Councilmember Perkins and Councilmember Nelson, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.